I actually worked for a short while on Jurassic Park 1 about, what was that, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So I was on that project for about 2 months, so got quite a bit of information on dinosaurs and all that at that point. And I've always been really interested in dinosaurs and have gone down to the Field Museum in Los Angeles at the La Brea Tar Pits and all that stuff. So that it's sort of in my bones, I guess, no pun intended. We have a lot of drawings, a lot of designs that need to be generated, so I basically have a couple of art directors. Greg Papoli is my supervising art director, and he's going to be staying here in Los Angeles and dealing with all the big stage sets that we're in the process of building and also will be building. And then Doug Meerdink is my other art director, and he will be handling all the stuff that we're going to be doing in Hawaii. And then I have set designers who do the actual working drawings. I guess you'd call them blueprints, because the construction crew has to have drawings to work from. Also, we have a concept illustrator, Jack Johnson, who's worked on a lot of these movies, and he's doing actually some of the images that are behind me. He's done concept paintings.
Usually I get on a show the same time the production designer does, or within days, and I get involved in his areas that he thinks are really going to need to be developed first. And sometimes that's out of his head, sometimes it's strictly from a passage in the script or an outline. The first thing that we tackled on this, for instance, was the cage that was going to handle the pteranodons. This was a new thing for the show, and it had to be huge because they, for instance, have a 32-foot wingspan. So I started fooling around with shapes. But in this case, because we have a director who is a former illustrator, art director, designer, he has some pretty strong opinions about the visual elements. So he would do a thumbnail of a shape, and then I would take off and try and develop that shape and make some construction sense out of it.
We also have several storyboard artists who are working directly with Joe Johnston, the director, to storyboard all the scenes in the movie.
Generally, Joe will do a drawing plus talk us through what it is he sees the shots being. Then we will draw the storyboards in that sequence to tell the story almost as a comic book kind of thing, frame by frame. We sort of draw these in relation to exactly how they're going to shoot it, and so everybody sort of gets the idea of what the director has in mind, and the scope and the scale and the technical tricks he might want to use and or effects in it as well.
Right now I'm doing a scene, it's the opening of the movie kind of. They're going to the island with a boat, and they're going to take off on this parasail, and they're going to get lost on the island. So I have the script page, and I follow the description, and I'm trying to figure out how they're going to shoot and the best way to tell the story through pictures. Then I'll show this stuff, all the storyboards, to Joe Johnston, and we're going to go through the boards and analyze shot by shot and figure out if that's the best way to tell the story. And he might decide to add a shot or two, or just sometimes just completely change the whole thing, you know? So it's just a way to show him, you know, what we're thinking and our input into the movie.
It's gonna be okay, buddy.
Especially with a film like this, because it's so technically complicated, it's very important to try to storyboard as much as you can in advance. Otherwise, it doesn't allow for as much spontaneity when you're actually shooting, because we're dealing with some really large Stan Winston creatures, as well as how those pieces are going to segue into what ILM's going to do. And so the more pre-planning we can do, the less it's going to cost us when we're actually shooting the film, and the more efficient we'll be. Here at Universal Studios, we're going to be doing interior as well as exterior stage space, so we'll be using several of the sound stages here. Stage 12 will be our major jungle set, and its variations. There'll be trees coming in, moving out, things changing. Stage 18 is going to be our preliminary process stage for our airplane interior and also other blue screen work that we have to do. And then we'll have a couple of other stages. Stage 29, there's a whole sequence where they're down in this canyon where the pteranodons live and they have to walk across the big suspension bridge. We'll be doing that there probably. And stage 27, which is the big deep pit stage here at Universal, we'll be doing the exterior canyon wall. and all that, so we can get like a 50-foot high canyon wall so they can have them working their way down the side of the canyon. As well as probably the pteranodon egg nests, where the kid gets dropped and all the little baby pteranodons are trying to eat this kid. And then we'll also be on the back lot. We'll be using Falls Lake for part of the River Canyon. And then we also are going to be using part of the set from Jurassic Park 2 at the end of the sequence when they're on the island, they escape and they go to this one office, its whole compound. Rather than like rebuild it from scratch, we decided to try to use some of that structure, and then we're going to add our own structure on top of that. Same colors, those colors, so let's try maybe a black and maybe like a blue.
The irony with Ed Verreau is that Ed goes back to Raiders of the Lost Ark with us as well, because he was a storyboard artist at the same time that Joe Johnston was working up at ILM and effects. So it's really nice to bring those two together now in the capacity that they're working with Joe directing and with Ed Verreau as the production designer. And the work that Ed did with the jungle sets is quite phenomenal, because by starting a movie like this on location where everything you're doing is backing into the stage work, so that jungles shot outside now are being shot inside big sound stages and they need to match with what you shot in Hawaii, that's enormously difficult to do. And I think he did an incredible job. And we also put together a set out on the back lot of Universal Studios, which ended up with a massive amount of scaffolding just to construct the hillside around the water. And he did quite an incredible job, again, of matching the locations that we found in Hawaii. And that speaks again to the importance of the pre-production work and the communication going on early on, where you have to know what those locations are early on in order to know exactly what it is you're matching. But he did phenomenal work.